You are now the host.
Lovely, thank you very much. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar, which is a part two of two webinars I'm doing on LinkedIn. But if you missed the first one, don't worry, I will do a very quick recap. Okay, I'm going to start with a regular presentation, and then I'm going to switch to working live with LinkedIn itself. And then I will switch back with some tips and tricks towards the end. So if you've got any comments or anything that you would like to make, then pop them in the chat. My colleague Nauza is here and will be keeping an eye on that for me, and I will try and keep an eye as well. So if I go too fast or if you've got a question, then please let me know. Okay. So I'd first like to start off to thank Watford Borough Council for giving us this opportunity to provide you with a whole series of digital skills webinars, and for a selection of people one-to-one consultations as well. The Digital Skills Programme covers quite a wide range of different topics, all on the digital platform. I will give a list at the end of all of the various different webinars available and how to sign up for them. But this is just a sort of top level selection of the types of content we're going to cover. So, how to choose your digital platforms, a little bit on growing your business through using digital activity, best tools, how to create good content, creating engagement, building and maintaining your customer relationships, generating leads, which is something we're going to focus on very much today, and planning for success, planning being absolutely key to success in this area. Okay, and for today, I'm going to do, obviously we're doing a quick introduction now, and then a little overview of what we did last time, and then going in deep to Sales Navigator and giving you an overview of what that looks like. My mouse has stopped working. Okay. The approach you need to take when using Sales Navigator, or alternatively, the free version of LinkedIn. So don't worry, I'm not here to give you a pitch for buying LinkedIn software. How to message, how to connect and build relationships, which hopefully will turn into useful ones to you, either in the form of clients or alternatively in the form of referrers. Okay, so a little bit about me. What gives me the right to be up here today talking to you? Well, I cut my teeth originally as a statistician working for the building research establishment just up the road from Watford in Garston. And then from there, I moved to American Express, where I was responsible for their data marketing team. From there to Coca-Cola. And after that, I set up my own consultancy called Royal Marketing, which has been providing marketing services to the local community for the last 30 years. I also recently inherited my father's business, which is an export business fundamentally, with 70% of the business coming in the States. And finally, I'm a co-founder of Brandwin Business Support, which provides a range of business services, consultancy, instruction, workshops, and support for the SME community. We work extensively with local councils, the government, LEPs and chambers of commerce, as well as other commercial business partners like Metro Bank. Okay, so a quick review of how we got here today and what we learned last time about LinkedIn, just in case you weren't able to attend last time. I know that we've got a bit of a mixed audience, but it never does any harm to do a little recap. So first of all, LinkedIn is very useful for getting new business. There are over 29 million people in the UK on LinkedIn. It is the platform if you're going to choose just one if you work in the business environment. 80% of all social media leads for B2B come from LinkedIn. So if you've got to pick one, only one platform for your business, if you're working in the business to business environment, then LinkedIn is definitely it. It's great for research. So even if you don't use it for creating relationships, it's still great to find out background information about the people you want to speak to. It's a wonderful broadcast marketing tool. So for raising brand awareness, it's absolutely essential. It goes hand in hand with your website. You can find your very best employees via it, either using their recruitment tool or alternatively reaching out to the people who fit your profile. You can discover the names of your prospects and actually contact them directly, circumnavigating the receptionist, which can always be a bit of a problem for anyone who has done any new business work. It can be terribly difficult, and that's what we're going to focus on today. And finally, it is important to have a great profile and a great company profile, because 90% of people will check it out as part of their due diligence when deciding whether or not they want to work with you. So all very good reasons for engaging with this particular platform. Okay, so moving on, here's a few little details of things that you just need to consider when looking at your profile. First of all, people are always attracted by images. So make sure your images are really working hard for you. Have a fabulous portrait of yourself. Smile showing your teeth, engage with people, and use the banner picture behind you to its fullest extent. Don't just put a logo up there or a nice picture. Use words, use selling tools as a selling space, really important space to make use of, and make sure you actually upload pictures, video, and links to the whole of your profile. It makes it look a lot more interesting. Remember, your is the focus. So when I say that, I've actually made a slight typo there. What I meant is that your client is the focus, not you. So what's really important here is to make sure you're speaking directly to them. Don't start off with, I'm a genius, I'm fantastic, I'm the best. What they want to hear is what you're going to do for them. So benefit-led. Are you looking for somebody who can do X, Y, and Z? Have you struggled with? Do you want? Those are kind of questions you can engage with, and that will help you really build empathy in a relationship right from the off. So make sure your copy is very client-focused. Complete all of your profile. Don't just give half the story. This is a great opportunity to tell people about yourself and about your company. Be open to be contacted. It's surprising, but quite a few people put a profile up there and then make it difficult for a client to contact or prospect to contact you. Be open to that. Have your settings quite widely open. Don't worry, it won't open the floodgates. My profile has always been completely open, and I really don't get very much in the way of spam. You can always turn down people, it's easy enough, or even block them if they do hassle you. So unless you've got a really good reason, be open to be contacted. And give your contact details. Be open about that as well. So not just be open to contact through LinkedIn, but give your phone number, give your email address. Use native video, and by that means load the video up onto LinkedIn, whether you're posting or whether it's in any other area of LinkedIn, because LinkedIn doesn't like you to send the visitor somewhere else off their site. So if you put an embedded link, LinkedIn's not overly keen on that. Do regular, quality, informative posting. And I will talk a little bit more about posting towards the end of today, because it's a really good way of building credibility and also interacting with prospects. And remember, it's a two-way thing when you're interacting with people on any platform. It's not you bombarding sales messages outwards. This is a dialogue, and you need to think of it as a dialogue. Think, what do you like? and how do you like to use any kind of messaging service, and use it in the same way, because you'll get the right kind of response from your visitors. So a quick whistle-stop tour, say that with my teeth in, of building your profile. First, this is the picture I was talking about at the back. This is 3 pictures made up of 3 different sections. You can see a nice picture of me at work. So not a Shutterstock image, something which is genuine, a message, easy to contact, my logo, just to bring it out a little bit more fully, and something about me up here, making it very clear that I'm senior, I know what I'm doing and what I can do for you. So that's number 1. Fill in your about, make it you focused. As I said at the beginning, are you a business owner looking for? So be warm, be interesting, be welcoming. Now, when people are looking at your profile, you have an option of featuring a couple of videos or something of interest, and also it shows your activity. So if the last time you did anything with LinkedIn was 3 months ago, that shows here, and it's not ideal. So it is a good idea to at least engage with it on a reasonably frequent basis. Complete your experience. That's your opportunity to show off. But you will notice if you look at my profile, again, I tend to do it with a you focus rather than a me focus, not egocentric. Tell people what your skills and endorsements are. That's really useful. LinkedIn uses it to help you come up in searches. Always handy. And remember to ask for recommendations. All you need to do is ask for a recommendation by clicking on the button, putting in the name of the person that you want a recommendation from, and sending it off to them. If they are happy to do so, you get to see it before it gets loaded onto your website. That's your choice. So if they write something you're not happy with, you can either go back with them or choose not to publish. Fill in your education and any charity work that you do. Join groups, show some interest in things that you get up to, because again, if you're both in the same Chamber of Commerce, for example, or something like that, it gives you a reason to communicate. And finally, there is an option to add additional bits of information, like, for example, case studies and honours and awards. So really important that you complete all of those thoroughly. Right, let's focus now on the main entertainment for today, which is using LinkedIn to find good prospects. So what I want you to do right now for me, and perhaps pop into the chat, in fact, definitely put it into the chat for me so I can see the sorts of target audiences you're thinking about. If I was to say, what is your ideal customer? Now, by ideal, I don't mean just any old customer, I mean the perfect customer. So, perfect customer. Mortgage advisors, excellent, fantastic, thanks very much. Now it's a really good thing that you've put there actually. What I now want to go in and say, mortgage advisors where? Is it the whole of GP? Is it senior? Is it junior? Are they experienced? Are they not experienced? Are they active on LinkedIn? So think about all of those different pieces. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some little prompts up on the screen to really make you think about it. Because it's not for, if you're a builder, you're actually looking for somebody who is ready to do an extension. Now, there's no piece of information where you're going to get that very easily, apart from the planning office. So what we want to look for are demographics and things which people tend to pop into something like LinkedIn, which will help you find them. Construction main contractors, brilliant, fantastic. Okay, so the sorts of things which will add a little bit of flavour to that is, okay, demographics. What sort of age are they? What's their education? Who do they know and who do they hang out with? So they might be people who you have a contact in between. Other things you can consider is what function do they have? So if you're looking for main contractors, who within the main contractor do you want to speak to? Is it a particular job title? Is it the quantity surveyor? Is it procurement? You know, think about that. Exactly what job do they do? And their job title. So the two things are different. Job function would be something like human resources. It could be an overarching area. It could be finance. Job title might be specifically the financial director or financial manager. And that will vary depending on the size of the company you're speaking to. So in a small company, you might want the financial director, but in a larger one, a manager will be sufficiently senior for your purposes. Seniority, does it have to be the owner? Is it a director? Is it somebody who's just a decision maker? Or do you want somebody who might be a PA or something of that nature? Sector and industry, so you can be quite precise. Location, is it anywhere or is it very specifically in Watford? Is it Hertfordshire? Is it the southeast? So start thinking about those. So you put here, which is great, entrepreneurs and business owners looking for a new bespoke website. Now, unfortunately, in the world, there aren't lists of people who are looking for a new website. So what we have to do is to do a bit more research than that. So I would suggest you're looking for growing businesses. So they might have outgrown their website, that kind of thing. So what sorts of things would be triggers which might be helpful for you? And finally, think about, so you have been very good here. Can't see your name, Tina. So it could be that you focus on the private sector, but some people actually specialize in not-for-profit and some with working with local government. So usually we're doing a layered thing here and trying to find a niche, a very specific niche of the sorts of people you want to speak to, because having a list of 5,000 is too many for anybody to manage, but a list of 150 becomes a practical proposition. So typically when I'm thinking about it, I will think about 3 or 4 or maybe 5 different criteria for selection. Okay. Any more for any more? Anybody got some other suggestions, or shall I move on? I'm going to stop sharing this screen now and I'm going to go to LinkedIn itself. Right, so let's have a little look. Okay, so I'm hoping everyone can now see my screen. This is my personal profile. Anybody who would like to have a look at it, it is open for view, and you're very welcome to send me a message and ask to connect to me. Okay, now there are several ways of searching on LinkedIn. Now, if you have the free version only, you can put something in into the search engine and look for a person. So I'm just going to type in here, Rick. So these are all the people who are called Rick, and I'm going to press search. So say I've met somebody called Rick at a particular networking meeting and now want to follow up with him. Or alternatively, I'm searching for a company in a particular area. As soon as you use the search engine, a bunch of different types of filters appear up here. And you can then refine your selection. And you do that by pressing all filters. And then what you find is on the right-hand side, you're given some options to refine this list down a bit. So I could say, well, I'm only interested in people who are in the United Kingdom and who are second connections of me. And it could be a particular company. It could be a particular industry. So I could say professional training and coaching, because that's what I'm interested in. And that's it. There aren't a lot of search criteria in the free version, but there are some, and you can use them. And then I can show my results, and here's my list popping up here of people who fit my criteria. And then I can go through that and I can make further selections from that. That's one way of doing it using the free version. I'm now going to show you the paid for version, which everybody can get free on trial for the first month. And very frequently, a month is all you need to do all the legwork and do all the prep. Going back to one of the webinars is on planning. So planning is useful for that to avoid any additional costs. So these are all of the selection criteria you can have in Sales Navigator. So I've pressed the button and said, I want to go to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And here it is. This is Sales Navigator. And if I go onto the home page, this is what the home page looks like when you first arrive. And it gives you lots of information about what is happening. That's not what I want to show you today. What I want to show you today is the lead filters. Okay, so this is where defining your target market carefully is really important. And what you can do is you can do several different searches. So if you've got 3 different types of client who are completely different, then you can do 3 different searches to find the people you want. So, for example, let us say in my particular interest, I am interested in people in the United States, for example. So I can put United States in and it will tell me how many people are in the United States. And it turns up there 178 million people in the United States on LinkedIn, slightly more leads than I require. Or you can do something simpler. You can do it by postcode, and I can type in my postcode. So if you're only interested in people who are really close to you, you can then select, say, a 50-mile radius around my particular postcode, and you can see there's 9 million people on LinkedIn in that set of category. So you don't need to travel far. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. And then I'm going to start thinking about some of the things which people were talking about as their selection. So first of all, is it private, not-for-profit or state that I'm looking for? Now, as a marketeer, I'm going to be looking for privately held. So I'm going to put in privately held or a partnership as my key, and self-owned, not self-employed because that will be too small. And then immediately up here, that reduces it down to 2 million. Next, what I want is the head count. So I tend to work with medium-sized companies, and they typically employ 11 to 50 or 51 to 200 people, not any bigger than that. Bigger than that, they have an internal marketeer. Smaller than that, they won't have the sort of budget which I might be interested in. Here we're talking about perfect client, not all of my clients by any means. Okay, so now this is where I'm going to diverge a little bit and say I would actually like to do 2 different lists now. So I'm going to take off the 51 to 200 because the person who makes a decision about marketing in a smaller company is almost always the managing director. So at this point, I go down to seniority level and I put in owner, CXO, VP, and partner. And now I've got 100,000 responses. And then I could say, but yeah, I am a specialist in tech industries, information technology. Still too many. So what I'm now going to do is change this geography to, whoops, postcode. There we go. And I'm going to just make it a bit closer to home. Say 10 miles. 315 results of managing directors or senior people in technology companies within 10 miles of my office who fit all of those criteria. Now, there's lots of other criteria that I can use here. So, for example, if 315 was too much for me, there are certain sorts of things which are really helpful. I could screen here for people who've posted in the last 30 days, which is 76 of them. So I know they're active on LinkedIn, which would be quite useful for me to know. Or changed jobs in the last 90 days. So for somebody who is selling a new website, this might be the time when somebody's moved into a new job and wants to make some massive changes. So that might be a trigger. It could be that they've got a shared experience. They both went to the same university or college. They're both members of the Watford Chamber of Commerce, any number of different things. So as you can see, there are lots and lots of different options. Another one which I really like is where they're a joint connection of somebody I particularly know. So you could put in there something that you knew would be a good intermediary for you, or a referral, so you could ask for a reference. So from here, I've now got this wonderful list of perfect people who I might want to approach as a marketeer and offer my services to them. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure I don't lose it. And I'm going to save that search. And Nicola, top list of tech MD 11 to 50 within 10 miles of office. So you can see I've given it a good description, and I'm going to save that search. Now I'm going to go on in a minute to talk about how you connect and warm these people up and deal with them. Now you've got them, but I'm also going to show you, before we do that, a quick trick as to how to avoid paying for Sales Navigator if it's prohibitively expensive. Somebody's raised their hand, but I can't hear you, so you'll need to pop whatever it is in the Tina, could you put whatever your question is into the chat for me? Just that I know. Well, lovely. Sorry, it was a mistake. Someone else raised their hand. Okay, if anybody's got a question, pop it in the chat. I've got it running in front of me. Okay, so now I have got this list. What you can do, not through LinkedIn, but I will show you in a moment how you can do this. You can extract that list and put it in an Excel spreadsheet. It won't give you contact details, but it will give you the URL, their name, their job title, and all the other bits and pieces, which are quite useful. So we've got 300 people here. I'm going to reduce this list a little bit more just so that it's faster. Okay. 160, that's kind of perfect. Right, okay. So this is my search. I can now pop into something which is called Phantom Buster. I believe Nowza is recording all this, so you don't need to take frantic notes. So connect to LinkedIn and go back here, pick up my search, pop it in here, save that, put Nicola's list in here, save all my options. And now I just launched this, and what it's doing now is reading that information, and it's going to pop it into a CSV file, which I can then download and work on, which I may show you a little bit later on in this presentation. Okay, so that's the basics of Sales Navigator. I am going to show you a couple of other things, just in case you were interested in using it as a proper sales tool, rather than just capturing prospect details. Now, obviously, this is also a research tool, so you can then go into some of these and get a little bit more information. So say this guy here is really, really perfect. What is the benefit? Oh, okay, I will show you. I will be talking about it in a bit more detail. So I am going to download my list. The reason why the contact details aren't there is very simple: data protection. However, if you know what company they work at, what website they've got, and what their name is, it's easy enough to get the telephone number. Right. So I'm now going to stop sharing LinkedIn, and I'm going to share with you the output from this. And I will just format it so that it's easier for you all to read. Okay, so the information you get out is the profile URL. So if you now want to go back and find them, easy to find. Next, it gives you the full name, the company name, the title, how to find the company address on LinkedIn, location, where they are, what industry they're in, how long they've been there, whether they're a close connection. So if they're just one in between you, then you might be able to ask for an introduction from the person in between, and then some other information which is probably less useful. Okay, so what I do with this now is I will then click on this person's LinkedIn profile or pick it up. Okay, and then I go back to LinkedIn and I send them a connection message, or I send them an email, or I look up their telephone number and I give them a telephone call. Does that answer your question? Very roughly. We will be going into a lot more detail on that in a moment. Right, so that is now my perfect list to be working on. And what's more, I can hand it on to somebody else to do some of the other legwork for me. So if I wanted to, I could give it to an admin person to say, go and find their website, go and find their best telephone number, get me their email if you possibly can by phoning up reception, etc. So it is relatively easy to get contact information from there. Now, this is why you don't need to pay for LinkedIn, because what I tend to do, because I'm a bit tight when it comes to my lovely clients, and I actually don't want anybody to pay for stuff that they don't need to pay for. What I will do is I will do all my selections in advance, and then I will put them all into a spreadsheet, and I've got enough work for marketing purposes for at least 6 months, if not a year. And then when they offer me a free trial again, I refresh the data. So that is one way you can easily exploit the system. So I'm now going to go back into Sales Navigator for 1 minute and just show you something else that you can do. So let's choose at random Abdul. Okay. Now, say Abdul looks absolutely my perfect customer. I can go over here and there's some little options here. I can choose to connect to them, which we'll talk about in detail in a moment, view his profile, or I can ask LinkedIn to see if they can find other people who they think are similar. And you just press that button there, or you can message them. And it gives you all of that kind of information. Here we go. Suggestions. The other thing that sometimes happens, not always, is if I click on them, you get other bits of information. So, and one other thing that I want to show you is if I want to add, say, this person to a list, which I can do, so I can have lists of special people that I want to follow up and track. I can add them into my great lists. There we go, into my great lists. And if I go up here, I've got a separate set of hand-picked individuals. So we're going to have a quick look at my great leads. And here, if you want to use Sales Navigator on an ongoing basis, this is like a mini CRM or marketing database. It allows you to make notes. So I can put a note in here. I saw he had posted on such and such. I commented. So you know whether you're doing anything with them. It tells me whether I've tried to connect with them, when I added it to the list, and then it gives you the options of doing stuff straight from this list. So if you want to narrow down out of your saved search anything further, then you can do that with this. Okay, so we've now defined our target market, and you can now see why it was so important, why I was banging on about getting exactly the right audience really well defined before you start. I've given you a whistle-top tour of the system, and now I'm going to tell you, okay, so what would we like to do with this next? So going back here. This is where we got to. This was just in case I had problems with LinkedIn, which I sometimes do. So I'll just whiz through that. Okay. So this is the difference between Premium and Sales Navigator, just very briefly. If you wanted to purchase it, it's $80 a month, very approximately. But the first month is almost always free. But you can see it is never worth buying Premium. Premium gives you nothing at all for your money and is a rip-off in my view. Okay, so moving on. What's the approach? How do we deal with these guys? Well, if you've got an intermediary that you can see as a shared connection, so there's one person between you and the person you want to speak to, you could ask for an introduction. That's perfectly reasonable. Alternatively, you can request to connect. And that is a really good way to start. Now, rough rule of thumb, between 25 and 50% will accept your connection, depending on how well you've written the invitation in the first place. A proportion will completely ignore you. So the other 50 to 75% ignore you. There is no point pursuing them at this stage, not through LinkedIn anyway. They're going to be hard work. But a small percentage will connect, and they might send you a message and say, hey, great to hear from you. In which case, the obvious thing is then to respond and ask them about their business and develop that relationship. The vast majority of the rest fall into this category. They just go, oh yeah, all right then, and they don't do anything else. So it's now up to you to take that relationship further by engaging them in some kind of dialogue. Now, there's lots of different ways of doing that, but asking questions is always a good way because it's more difficult to ignore you. But what you're wanting to do is to develop the relationship, and we'll talk about follow-up messages shortly. From there, the idea is to start moving that relationship forward, keep on talking until you can take it off LinkedIn and arrange a telephone call, a Zoom meeting, or a face-to-face meeting. And that's your opportunity at that point to sell a little bit more. Now, what's really important is in these orange and the blue boxes in the middle, that it's not a sales pitch. As soon as you go into sales mode, if you do it too early, you'll put people off. It's all about building relationships. People don't usually buy particularly more expensive things in a rush, and you've got to develop that credibility and empathy and all of those other things before you head off into I've got the best thing since sliced bread, which you must have. Okay, so first things first, request to connect. These are the things we talked about earlier. Always use a connection message, prepare responses in advance, be consistent, monitor, interact. Sorry, I should have given this bit to you first. and use the tools in Sales Navigator to help you. I may come back to this slide in a moment. Okay, so no sales, easier if you share connections, but give them a good reason to connect with you. Keep it short, direct, and a little flattery. So this is the important bit, is getting your connection message really, really good. So this is an example of one I have written. Dear Joe, I notice from your profile that we're both based in Hillingdon and work in similar fields. In fact, we have so many connections in common that I'm surprised we haven't met already. It would be great to be connected. Okay, what I want you to do now is to have a think about your target audience and think about how you could persuade somebody to connect to you. And what I'm going to do now is pop this up as a reminder. Okay. Keep it short, direct, and a little flattery, and give them a good reason. So imagine your perfect customer is sitting one connection message away from you. What you're not going to do is, I know you need a new boiler, can I sell you one? Or we sell the best websites in the world. What you start off with is, I see we're both businesses in the local area, wouldn't it be good to, or words to that effect. So if you'd like to have a go at that, it's hard, I will just warn you of that. And pop something into the chat when you've had a go. Avoid talking about yourself. It's all about them. Nobody talking to me? Anybody got anything? I think I've over-challenged you. Okay. So I'm just going to run through those tricks for success again, and then we can come on to what you do next after they've connected, given that nobody wants to be brave enough to talk to me. Okay. So first of all, you need to select your group carefully. The more similar everybody is, the easier it is to have one connection message which will do all of them. So if they're all working in the same industry or in the same location, or ideally both, that makes it much easier to write something which you can just cut and paste and change the person's name. Work in small batches of niche and well-defined groups. Now, there are systems out there which will do this automatically, but it'd be very easy if you end up with 5,000 connections and no idea who anybody is. It's probably better for the majority of people to work in small, carefully selected groups and work slowly through it, working out how you're going to build and develop your relationships. Always use a connection message. If you don't use a connection message, you're very much less likely to get a response, which is positive. Prepare what you're going to say after they've connected in advance, so you're not caught on the hop. So you've got a communication strategy in hand. And then it's important that you go onto LinkedIn every day for just a few minutes, just to see if anybody's connected, or have it set up so it pings you a message in your inbox to say that somebody has connected. Use the tools in Sales Nav to help you get the right selection. Now, as I say, you can do selections perfectly well in the free version. It just doesn't give you the sophistication that Sales Navigator will give you. And then always take it off LinkedIn as soon as you can. So that's the tips for your initial message. The next thing that we need to think about is, what do we send on? How much personalization should we add to the message for each contact, or is it best to keep it generic? Well, I try to have, say, I think we ended up with about 100 to 150 people in that selection that I just did. And they were all people who were based in the Watford area, who were managing directors in tech. So I could have started off, dear Jared, I see that, like you, like me, you're interested in tech and are based in the Watford area, and also you run your own business. I am interested in increasing my network with people like you, who are, similar in some way to me. Yours sincerely. And then I can do that for everybody in that group, because they've all got the same characteristics, and that's the advantage of having a niche group. So I don't personalize the message at all, apart from changing the name, providing my group that I've selected is small enough. Does that make sense? I tend to do it more formally, just simply because I don't know them terribly well, and particularly the people that I tend to work with. This is an age thing. Most of my clients are older. They're 55, 60 plus, and tend not to like to be addressed initially as hi, dear works better. If I was trying to reach out to somebody who was under 40, then I would go for hi, how you doing? And also, if they're American, I tend to say hi, because I've got a lot of clients over in America. So it depends on what the nature of the business is. So yesterday I did one of these for a client, and we were reaching out to the head of Scottish Water, and that was dear Mr. McClellan. Okay, different approach again, because this guy was more senior, very, very much more senior, and it seemed a bit cheeky to say, hi, Douglas. He's got 4,000 members of staff and a millions turning over business, and it just would seem pretty. So think about what would be acceptable to the sort of person you're going to be reaching out, and then use that tone of voice. So if I was going for a real young emergent client, new business, young, working in a new software house, then dear might be a little bit too formal. And the rest of the content would be a lot less formal as well. Okay, so what I would like you to pop into the chat now is ideas for what I might follow up with that. So they come back and they say, they've just said, yes, okay, I'm connected to you. How are you going to open the dialogue? What is a good way to follow that up? Because you don't want to talk about you still want to talk about them in some way. So there are some options. One option is to send them something which is interesting, which is informative. So have a think, what kind of information have you got which might be interesting to somebody? So if you were in web design, somebody was saying earlier that they're in web design, you might send something about how you can quickly assess whether your website is effective. And it's a link to a little article, or you could give 5 key points, or something of that nature. Always ask a question so that they've got to come back to you with an answer. So what sorts of things? You could send an article. What else do you think would be of interest? Oh, excellent, fantastic. A video of yourself, Tina, brilliant, spot on. Okay, so video is really, really powerful. One of the things, there's a couple of ways of doing video. One is a video of yourself showing some credibility, talking about something which you think they would be interested in. The other way we often do is to send something similar to that and then say, I've just made this video, not sure whether it's whether there should be any improvements. What do you think? So asking their advice. So you can ask their advice to get them to watch the video, or you could just send the video. So the sorts of things that I tend to send are useful information, video information, something which is working in their sector, which might have nothing to do with me specifically, but I saw this and thought it would be interesting. It's just an opening gambit to get the ball rolling, to get that conversation going. And what you're hoping for is they will come back with something specific that they want to discuss with you further. The other thing that you can do is invite them to an event. So I'm putting on a free webinar. So if I was trying to get some new business right now and I knew I was going to give this webinar this morning, I could invite some of my handpicked prospects and say, I'm giving this free webinar. You'd only lose an hour of your day if it was a disaster, but you may learn something which is really useful, thought you'd like to come. That is the sort of thing which might work. And if they turn up, then you can follow up with them further because you've now got more contact information. So those are the sorts of things you can do. How do you know what might be useful to your prospect? Ah, yes, indeed. Well, as a professional, I find in marketing, I find the same things come up in conversation when I first meet people pretty well consistently. They have the same worries or they have the same problems. So I could start off with, for anybody who's had difficulty getting new business, now who hasn't, this is a useful guide, or this is a really useful video on how to do your elevator pitch or something like that. So you can tackle something which comes up regularly in any kind of initial client meeting that you would have. Alternatively, you could talk about something which is which you know affects everybody in that sector. So for example, if I was trying to sell into say Scottish Water, which I talked about earlier, one of the really hot and important things for them is risk management. They can't afford for a whole section of the community to do without water for any length of time. So they're heavily regulated and they're risk averse. So you could send them something about how to make compliance easier whilst mitigating risk. Somebody who's running a nuclear reactor has a similar sort of problem. So you could be talking about industry-wide issues for that particular organization. So if you were talking about somebody who's borrowing money, their biggest, if you're trying to help them get a loan or recapitalize or something like that, what's their biggest worry? What happens if I can't pay it back? That kind of thing. What are they likely to be wanting that money for? So those are the things that I would be thinking about addressing. So it just depends on your niche. So once again, having a small group, tightly defined target audience would be really helpful there, because they're likely to be facing similar sorts of issues. In an emergence company in software, it might be actually that they expand too fast and they haven't got enough process involved, in which case having a business mentor might be helpful to them. So you could be talking about that if you're a business mentor. So those are the sorts of things which come up. So this is one that I've done, talking about video, Tina. I thought you would be interested in this video we have just made about safety in the workplace. It would be great to have your feedback or to discuss further. Okay, get some feedback. That's a very simple, short and simple, doesn't take them long to think about. Put a link in there, Bob's your uncle. Make sure it is short, 60 to 90 seconds is ideal, and encourages them to come back to you. So that is a sort of follow-up. Now, the thing that you need to bear in mind is you're not going to get a sale from this. It's 3 or 4, 5 touches further down. So you've got to have more stuff to be communicating with them and make it interesting and varied. So you can send them something which is amusing, which is in their sector, which is I saw this cartoon today, thought you might find it funny, something like that. So it doesn't have to be all heavy in any way. So once you've got to that step, continue to follow up and engage. It's a persistent thing. People sometimes say, well, like, I've done that and then nothing happened. Nothing happened, send them something else until they do respond. Then try them through a different route. If you've got their contact details, you could try taking it to email at that point. If you've got an email address, at which point, and I have done this, I've written where the email hasn't worked because they're not very engaged with LinkedIn, or then send them an email and say, we're both connected on LinkedIn. I thought it would be great to have a conversation about, or thought this would be useful. LinkedIn is rubbish about doing X, so I'm using email. So you give an excuse as to why you've decided to opt for email, and they may be much more responsive on that platform instead. So that is the sort of thing that you can do. So how do you keep this dialogue going? It's quite hard work. You can comment and like on their posts, which is a really useful thing to do, so that they feel that you're interested in them. So you need to search their posts every so often and just have a quick look. So no substitute for hard work, I'm afraid, here. Tag them in your post. So one of the things that I will do is, if I've written an interesting article about marketing for tech companies, and I've talked about that 160 people I've selected, I might go through there and hand pick a few of them and tag them to say, thought you would be interested in this, just drawing your attention to it. I tend to stick that in the comment underneath the post rather than in the post itself, so it looks better. Okay, so that's a really good way of getting them to engage with you on the platform. Continue the dialogue in email and have further messages to send, so additional video, articles, interesting bits and pieces. Keep that dialogue going, don't let it go cold. Look and see if they give contact details. So if so, try a telephone call or an email. It takes at least 6 touches before a person will be ready to buy, at least, depending on the complexity of your sales process. For some people, it's even longer, but don't give up. You have to be persistent. Now, one of the things that they will do when they first get a connection message is go and look at your profile, which is why it's important that your profile looks good, but it's also why it's important that your posting looks good. So, quick reminder of posting. What can you post about? Educate and inform, important, interesting news, what you've done for a client, opportunities, top tips from the coalface, like and comment on other interesting, relevant posts, community, charity, and personal interest stuff, and entertain. Now, what's important about all of those is they're all good things to put into your follow-up messages. So not only do they make good posts, but they also make good follow-up messages. And you can use any of those formats. This is an example of a post which I've done. I've got a composite picture here, and it's nice and bright, very difficult for somebody to miss. So we've got 8 comments already and 11, 12 likes. That's kind of working. Here's another one, picture, engagement, good words, lots of comments. I tagged people, I used hashtags. And here's just a selection more of, this is a video of interesting posts. Now, any of these can be repurposed as follow-up emails. So a quick reminder on what posts will work for you. Add a picture will raise your interaction by at least 2-fold. Add native video, 3 times the number of comments, but impressions by 21-fold. Definitely video works. Again, 60 to 90 seconds. Get a great title or subject line and place that in the picture. Add 3 to 5 hashtags. Tag your clients, your prospects, referrers, and people of influence to make sure you get lots of comments on it. Make sure it's relevant and useful. Okay, so nothing too trivial, although it can be entertaining. If it's entertaining, that also works. Work with other businesses to maximize your reach, which is called a LinkedIn pod. You can share that together and test the right time. Generally speaking, early in the day is good. So a LinkedIn pod is where you agree with other companies to all be online at the same time and comment and like on each other's posts, and that will increase your broadcast capacity, the reach of that post. Now, it's important to have posting because if you're doing the connecting work, people look and they expect to see activity. Okay, so that ends my presentation this morning on advanced LinkedIn use for lead generation. Now we'll be circulating a link to the video a bit later, and you can peruse that at your leisure if you have an insomnia problem or actually just need to go over something in a bit more detail. I'd like to share with you other webinars which are coming up and the topics. So the next one is on business model, online strategy and innovation, social media for business, which I'm doing with a colleague. How much time is spent on posting and prospecting versus time spent on delivering? Okay, so I spend personally on my own, not other people's, LinkedIn, doing about maximum half an hour a day when I'm in prospecting mode. And if it's just posting, I spend approximately 5 minutes a day on posting, really not very much. And I tend to do that in batch. So I'll spend half an hour, maximum of half an hour, 20 minutes at the beginning of the week, and I line up my posts. I use a scheduler and then pop them ready, and that's it. I don't have to do very much, and I pop on it fairly regularly just to keep an eye. But I don't spend hours and hours on posting. I do try to avoid that. Prospecting, I work hard at because that's important for generating new business. But it just depends on your job role as to how much time is spent delivering project work versus prospecting. Social media for business, I will be doing with a colleague. Websites for work will be me. And then there's something on SEO, video, e-marketing, digital business tools, and really important, anyone who wants to have a one-to-one with me is very welcome. We're offering to just 20 companies 2 sessions, each of 1 hour with me. And we can talk about any of these things. I'm very happy to chat. Some people who are here present have already started that process with me. I think I've got 15 people already signed up. So if you want, please contact me directly and I will try and fit you in. The only criteria is that you need to be Watford based. Beyond that, nothing else. If you're a startup, if you're an established business, if you are thinking about starting up, all of those qualify, but just need to be based in the Watford area. You will get an action card out of the one-to-one, which tells you what the next critical steps are, and I will help you through that process. Okay, so the next steps. Watford Council is committed to developing and growing local businesses. So if you need things, please reach out to them. They are very supportive. They are funding completely this whole program, this digital skills program, for which we are very grateful. Right. Okay. So if you want to attend more webinars, here is the link, which is available. You can just search Watford Digital Skills on Eventbrite and it'll come up. But if you want to contact me, I'm at nicola@randwin.co.uk. So please do drop me a line as soon as possible to avoid being disappointed, because I have only got a very few places left. My consultancy does cover pretty well every area of digital and traditional marketing. So I know that some people have squeezed in a few digital, non-digital questions when I've spotted them, when I've come in to talk to them. Right, thank you very much for your time. Are there any further questions before we wrap up? If not, I will leave you to go and explore LinkedIn, and I hope you're very successful with it. Thank you very much. My pleasure. Lovely to see you again, Emily and Tina. Great. Thank you so much.